Hello, my name is Beami, and today I wanted to share 7 things that my father taught me that I really only realized I had learned and picked up from him after he died. Number one, how to have a sense of humor. Mentioned before, like I grew up in the early part of my life, I was scared of everything. I was scared of the dark. I was scared of men, women, adults, kids, and everything. Everything was terrifying. And part of what helped me get over my fear is that my dad made everything goofy. There were people I was afraid of. There were, TV shows or movies or whatever that were scary. There were mean people or whatever. And my dad always just made them characters, like cartoon characters. Like he would impersonate them and it wasn't in a disrespectful way. It was in a playful, goofy, like dad being a dad with his kids, like how it should be way. I can't really describe it. But I think it's where I got how I just like to goof off and like do different voices and play different characters and whatnot, just like casually. He was very much like that. Ow. It was like essential for me to stop being scared. um, and I don't know. Yeah, I just think that being able to laugh at the absurdity of life, being able to kind of shake off and find humor in the difficulty of things is a very useful and worthwhile thing to have about you. And comedy is laughter is the best medicine. And nothing's really scary. There ain't nothing that's scary, especially not scary enough to make you worried. Number two, my dad taught me that there is never an excuse for boredom. I remember many times throughout my childhood, I said to my dad, "Oh, I'm bored. There's nothing to do." And he'd be like, "Boy, I've never been bored in my life." I'm like, "What? How have you never been bored? Wouldn't like sometimes you just have nothing to do? Be a little bored." He's like, "I've never been bored. There's always something to do. You can always find something to do. If there's nothing to do, you can stare at a wall." He's like, "I used to stare at the wall and imagine I was watching cartoons, seeing rabbits and bunnies hopping out on flowers." And I was like, "Yeah, that makes sense. Like, why? There is no excuse." And yeah, when I got older, I realized like I'm never bored because I always just know that I can figure out something to do. And sometimes doing nothing is the activity. Being clear, breathing, being empty, allowing yourself to reset. Number three, my dad taught me to always look up. And like a few years ago when that movie came out with Leonardo DiCaprio about I think it was like asteroid I didn't watch it, but it was called Don't Look Up. I just thought it was funny because everything that's happening in the world is teaching us to look down at our phones, not at each other, being antisocial, and especially never up. I walk around all the time, I'm constantly looking up. And more so in the last like year and a half, 2 years, I finally see other people kind of looking up, but it was so rare. My dad, I've said before, he like had a lot of crazy experiences with extraterrestrials, I guess you could say, or supernatural phenomena. And so I just grew up being comfortable with like the concept of UFOs and aliens and always looking, and I've seen multiple because I'm always looking up. And there's always something going on in the sky that it matters, man. There's so much more up there than there is down here. Number four, my dad taught me that being colorblind is not a weakness, it's a superpower. I didn't even know my dad was colorblind until like the last 8 months of his life or something, year. I was sitting at the dinner table with him and my grandma, his mom, and I mentioned something about being colorblind or whatever, and she's like, "Well, it makes sense that you have it since your dad is too." And I was like, "What? He is?" And she was like, "Oh." And I always knew on my mom's side, every male on my mom's side is colorblind. My brother's colorblind, my uncle's colorblind. And by the way, when I say colorblind, I mean color deficient. Look that up. This isn't a video on colorblindness. Everyone always asks me a million questions. But I, but yeah, so that day I learned that my dad, it was a secret that he was colorblind and no one knew except obviously his mom and direct family. But he worked at a print shop as the head manager of his department, printing campaign posters for, you know, political campaigns and you know, theater plays and movies and stuff, like whatever print shop. And so he had this little device that would scan any color and tell him the exact color code of it so he could go program it, you know, and do it for the client. And so he woke up at like 4:30, 5 a.m. every day, got to work 5:36, and before the sun came up, he used his device, he got his stuff done. He was like the best employee they had. He was always doing a fantastic job. And in fact, he was probably doing a better job than somebody who wasn't using that, even if they weren't colorblind, you know? He was just, and he the reason he did it really was to take care of me. Like, he was court ordered to provide health insurance to 3 of his kids, and he like had to provide for all of us, and he needed a good job that not only paid him well but provided him with benefits. And yeah, and like he worked his butt off. My dad was the hardest worker I ever met, and he gave me the chance, you know. And yeah, the fact that I remember a few weeks before, I wasn't there, but I heard he told me about it. I heard someone told me about it. A few weeks before he died, he realized that he was never going to be able to go back to work, and his coworkers and his manager, his bosses visited him, and he gave his favorite coworker, Amy, this device that I was talking about, and he gave it to her, and he said, this is how I've been doing it. I'm colorblind. And she was floored. She was like, no way. And so yeah, my dad was a secret agent and a superhero, and he taught me that being colorblind is a superpower. I had a teacher in high school who said, in middle school, who said, like, in the early wars, colorblind people were always on the front line because they could see well at night. And that started making sense to me, because I see in shapes. I think in shapes. I don't think in color. Everything in school and everything you're taught makes you only look at color. But I look at movement and shape, like an animal, like a deer, like a dog. And so I see things, and my vision's incredible. I can see very far and I don't, like, in terms of seeing, I have great vision. And I like the way I see. Honestly, I'm glad about it. Number 5, my dad taught me how to meditate without really knowing what meditation is. When I was a kid, I had a lot of trouble sleeping. I had a lot of nightmares. I was constantly overthinking. And my dad would come in my room and do the floppies. And I would be like, Dad, do the floppies. I can't sleep. And he'd come in and he'd talk real gentle, real easy. And he said, all right, relax. Just relax your whole body. Make your whole body limp. All floppy. And then he'd like pick up my arm at the wrist and drop it. And if it dropped like that, and I gave a little bit of resistance, he'd be like, no, you're not loose enough. You're not floppy enough. And he'd pick it up again, and I'd just let it drop. And so he knew that I was like fully relaxing. And then he'd like run his hand up kind of like from my toe, and he said, relax everything. And he'd run it all the way up to my nose, to my forehead. And I can get right here, it goes zoop. And I'd be knocked out. And so like, from that moment, from as an adult to this day, like if I can't sleep, I'm like, oh, I'm too tense. I know how to relax my body. I know how to breathe And you know, it wasn't until a few years ago that I really learned about meditation and started meditating. And that's when I was like, oh my God, my dad was teaching me all this without making it a thing and without giving me terms and just teaching me how to do it. And I thought he was doing it for me. Like, I didn't think I was doing anything. Number 6, my dad taught me that humans are storytellers. And storytelling is art. My dad his family had Cherokee and Choctaw in our ancestry, and he just like, also what he would do when I couldn't sleep or to help settle me down for bed was tell me stories. And he told me all these stories of him and his friends growing up, discovering things, being in the country, going in the pasture, seen crazy wild animals. And the way he told these stories was incredible, and I loved it. And I couldn't get enough of it. And, you know, he taught me about how native elders pass down their teachings through stories to their kids and generation to generation. And it's not all about documentation or written things. It's like verbal, oral storytelling is like crucial to to the history of humanity. And yeah, storytelling is art, and humans are artists, and we're creators. And I think, yeah, storytelling is as essential as breathing, honestly. And number 7 thing that my dad taught me, that I only realized later in life, long after he died, was that life doesn't die. It only transforms. I grew up feeling unsure. I always believed in a higher power. I always believed that there was something out there, but I didn't articulate it as God. I didn't pretend like I knew what it was or anything, and I still don't. But losing my dad, you know, several years afterwards, it was hard. I couldn't look at pictures of him. I couldn't listen to his voice. I couldn't listen to music we used to listen to. I couldn't play video games anymore. Everything just brought me down and made me sad, and I did everything with him. He was my best friend, and it was just felt sad and negative. And eventually, when I'd have really tough moments in my life at work or in relationships or in dynamics and forwarding rent, whatever, I didn't have anyone else to go to or talk to or lean on, and I would pray to him. That's what got me comfortable with prayer. That's what got me comfortable with talking to him every day. And it was only in like really intense moments that I was like crying and felt alone and desperate. And then like once a year, once every couple years, once every 6 months. And then I started, the more things that happened that were really challenging for me, I would remember like, my dad's always come through. Every time I've been desperate and prayed to him and asked if he's out there somewhere, I know you care about me. Like, if you can influence anything, like, please help me from wherever you are. And every time something happened. And I realized I'm ignoring this connection that it could exist 100% of the time. And so long story short, every single day, through every single moment, I'm talking to my dad. Not every single moment, obviously, but like every day for sure, multiple times a day, I'm having conversations with my dad. I'm asking my dad for guidance. Giving him jokes and teases about what's going on and where we are and where we came from. And, he's right along with it, right along the whole ride with me. And I don't have any doubt about that. He always responds. He always hears me. He hears me right now. He's with me right now. And I encourage anybody who has ever lost somebody that they really care about, and that really cared about them, that they're struggling with grief and loss, and they don't know, it's life isn't the same without this person. I encourage you to recognize that they're not gone. You're not without that person. You're not cut off from that connection. They're not somewhere else. Sure, they're somewhere else, but you will know that they're there if you ask them to show you. And not enough people are willing to take that step. Ask and then go back to your day, to your struggles or whatever. But ask and you will find, seek and you will receive. Seek and you will find, ask and you will receive. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, thank you for watching and I'll see you soon.